Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Karen. I am an astrologer, I'm a tarot reader, I'm an art therapist, and today I want to talk about Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who just got sworn in for her first term on the Supreme Court here in the US. Yay! Before we do that, I want to tell you a couple of things though, housekeeping. One, on Sunday, so October 2nd at 11 a.m. Pacific time, I'm doing a YouTube live here on this channel with my tarot cards answering people's questions. So if you're interested in having me answer a question, you can join me, or you can actually leave a question in the comments already now, and then I'll answer it when I get online in a couple of days. That's one. And two, right now until the end of October, I'm offering a discount, 20% discount on any session with me with code 20less. I'll put all of that in the show notes, but I wanted to let you know. Okay, so let's get to what we're actually talking about today. Okay. So we all have seen the or at least some of the confirmation hearings for Ketanji Brown Jackson, and I would hope that all of us were appalled at the way she was treated, and all of us were amazed at the way she held her ground and how she was just a reflection of integrity and just being grounded in what she knew and who she was. So she was sworn in, like I already said, and as I have also said a bunch of times before, everything around us has a birth chart. So whenever something officially starts, you can cast a chart for that time, and that could be a person being born or an animal. This could be a marriage, because when you say I do, that's the start of a contract or of a birth of a marriage. This could be a business being incorporated or even just filed for a business name. It can be a city, a country. City, by the way, a city of LA is a Virgo, which is so weird. Country, the US, of course, is a Cancer. And then it can also be a time period. So when you have an employment contract, when you sign that contract, that moment you can cast a chart and you can see sort of what you can expect in terms of, okay, so the sun was in the 10th house, so I probably have a very public role. I'm probably going to gain some notoriety for good or for bad, blah, blah. Anyway, don't let me go too much into detail. That's my greatest flaw, that I want to explain everything. Anyway, moving on. That same sort of energetic creation point happens when you become king, for instance. I did something on the British monarchy last week or week before, if you want to look for that video. And when you start serving the people as a judge, again, when she took that oath, that's the chart that we're casting and that we want to look at today. So before we go there, I threw this slide in here because I did an earlier video where I talk about how your own birth chart, how it works, what does it even mean that you have Saturn in the 4th house and blah, blah. So this is a bit of an explanation if you want to find out more about that. Okay, so now we're looking at her chart, and her birth time is not available, which is too bad, because what a birth time does, it takes that circle that you see and cuts it in 12 slices. And these 12 slices, each of them is a certain area in your life. So your 7th house is your one-on-one relationships, your marriage or your business partner. Your 4th house is your home or your mother, blah, blah, so forth. So when you do not have a time, usually the chart is being cast for 12 noon, as you can see here, and then there's no slicing here. Anyway, so what we can see just looking at this, even without a birth time, is that this woman has an incredible amount of Virgo energy. Now, if you know a Virgo in your life, that could go both ways. A Virgo that is sort of going towards the calcified version of it, I want to say, the sort of insisting on order, can be kind of a nag. they always see what's wrong and they don't hesitate to point it out to you. And for them, actually pointing out what's not right with you is an act of love, which if you have a very thick skin might fly. If not, if you're very sensitive, you're like, oh my God, I can't be around this person. Having said that, Virgo is their superpower really is discernment. So someone who has a whole bunch of Virgo being in a job where you need to know, I don't know how many laws and variations and this, that, it's perfect. So she has already in this very strong Virgo energy is sort of the seed for her to succeed in the field that she chose for herself. The other thing you can see here that she has a Pisces moon. Now the moon moves very fast. So this might not be the exact position, but even if she was born much later than 12, she would still have a Pisces moon. So I'm just going to go with that. So Pisces is opposite of Virgo. So I don't know if you notice, but each sign has sort of an opposite that's I would say the other side of the coin. So Virgo is the very sort of discernment earth sign. Let's make it clean and pure. And then Pisces is the other side, which is the water sign, and it's the bit messy, but so sensitive and so empathic and would never say anything to hurt anyone, kind of vibe. And you can be someone who has integrated these two energies, or you can see something that's sort of confronting to you. So you could be the Virgo that appreciates that sign, that Pisces, that softness, or you could be a Virgo that says, I don't want to be that, that's weak, blah, blah, which it isn't. Anyway, so for her Pisces moon, do you remember the picture that went around where the way her daughter's looking at her when she was in those confirmation hearings, and people were saying, oh my God, I wish my daughter would look at me like that. Yeah, she earned that with her Pisces moon. That is her being a mom and being completely loving her child for who they are and letting them be. Not, I mean, I'm sure she provides structure. I'm not saying this is a do whatever you want, but there's just such a connection here. That's that. So I don't know the rising, so I can't speak to that. Let's see what other notes I made. Okay, so all of this Virgo stuff, again, this goes, so a lot of times in a chart, you find an aspect, go, oh, okay, this means blah. And then you find that pattern sort of repeated two more or a couple more times. And you're like, yeah, that's really something that they're working on this lifetime. So her Virgo really is something that she's working on. And she's being helped by the fact, so the planet that rules Virgo is Mercury, the planet of communication. And he is in Virgo, the sign that he rules. So he's very strong. He's really helpful to her. And that makes her a very strong communicator. However, if you see the, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little R down here. That means it's retrograde. She was born with Mercury retrograde. And lots of times when people are born with Mercury retrograde, they're very deliberate communicators. They won't blurt stuff out. They're sort of, it's almost like they're rehearsing it in their head before they open their mouth and actually say it. So when she spoke in the Senate, and what she said was very measured and sort of like calm and thought through, that's sort of this retrograde in action. What else did I write down? Oh, Pluto conjunct the sun. So Pluto is the planet of transformation. And if you've watched any of my videos, you've heard me go on about how these years, it's been in Capricorn since 2008, but the last, like from 2020 to 2024 is sort of when this kind of crescendo happens, where Pluto, because it's in Capricorn, sort of does away with stuff that doesn't work anymore as a collective. And that includes government, that includes monetary systems, that includes healthcare system, that includes power structures, hierarchy, patriarchy, all of this. Pluto has come to sort of clean the slate. And because humanity, we don't like to change easily, we only change when we sort of hit rock bottom. That's why we're here where we are. There's also an added aspect, I will say, for the US, because we're going through our Pluto return. I won't go into this. there's a video on my, the first or second video on this channel actually talks about the Pluto return of the US, if that interests you. Okay, back to this one. Sorry, I love to talk about this stuff, and my greatest fault is that I get way too much into weeds. So I'm going to stick with this one, with this chart that I'm looking at. Okay, she has Saturn conjunct Pluto, which makes her, this is almost like a Scorpio vibe, someone who is super focused, super intense, super sharp, super intuitive about what's really going on. So you can pull the wool over her eyes. Even her Pisces Moon actually helps her too. Very emphatic, very intuitive, very much going, the energy doesn't feel right here. So she is a total powerhouse. And then lastly, what's sort of interesting, so most original astrologers, they use sun, moon, and then the other 8 planets to look at a chart. And those are archetypal forces that sort of, we can talk about in a different video. And then maybe 20 to 30 years ago, we discovered that there is an asteroid belt between, I want to say between Saturn and Uranus, either that or between Pluto. Anyway, there's an asteroid belt. There's a bunch of other heavenly bodies floating around. And a lot of astrologers have sort of adopted them into the chart to look at nuance. So the first one that was discovered was Chiron, which is the wounded healer, which is right here. I'm not going to talk about this right now. And then there was a woman, I think I made a slide. Hang on, let me see. Yeah, there was an astrologer named Demetra George, and she was the first one to look deeply into the meaning and the symbolic meaning of the asteroids. She wrote a book called Asteroid Goddesses. It's still available as far as I know on Amazon. And she very much focused it on the biggest one, the first 4 that were discovered. And as you can see, their names are derived from Greek or Roman mythology. So Ceres is the harvest goddess, and it's also the archetype that speaks about the mother and the mothering instinct. Juno is the wife, also Hera, wife of Zeus. So Juno and Hera are the same. Vesta, from the Vestal Virgin, sort of the keeper of the sacred flame, the keeper of the hearth. And in Pallas Athena, Athena is the wise woman, the one who sort of goes to battle but uses her head rather than I don't know, a battle axe. If you look at your chart and you look at these different asteroids and where they land, what you will see is that they're not major players, but they flavor the sort of script that is going on. And depending on where they fall or how close they fall to one of the major archetypes, to major planets, they can actually have a real impact. So, you know what, I'm not going to digress. So we can talk about asteroids. I should probably make a video about the asteroids and what that all means. So the last one, when I say don't go overboard, what I mean by that is that there is thousands of asteroids and bodies, and in the last couple of decades, they've all been discovered and named and blah, blah. And you could go crazy and look at all of them. And what you want to do is, so I always look at those 4 that I listed here, but I also pick 2 or 3 that I think will speak to the subject that interests me. So if I were to look at the chart of someone who just, let's say, had a fall from grace very publicly, I would look at asteroid Achilles, or I would look at asteroid Karma and see where they fall and whether they're activated in their chart at this time. I did choose 2. I'll get back to that in a second for this chart, but I just want to say one more thing. And this is sort of a little fun thing to do if you are, I would say, an intermediate astrologer, beginning astrologer. If you run your chart and you can look up, just do asteroid and then your name and say astrology. Actually, you don't have to say astrology, just said asteroid, in my case, asteroid Karen. Google that, and it'll come up and it'll say there is an asteroid, and it'll give you a number. And then you can plug into astro.com and you can look at where that asteroid lands in your own chart. So that's a very interesting thing to do. But you can also look where that asteroid falls in the chart of people that are that you're close to, your spouse, your mother, your whatever. So that's kind of, and again, this is not a huge, oh my God, this changes everything. This is just sort of a side note, a kind of flavoring of what's going on. Okay, let's go back to this. So actually, this is what we're going back to. So the asteroid that I've chosen to look at with this chart is Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, and Justitia, the goddess of justice. And when you know, both in Virgo, both part of this massive stellium, both part of her fighting force. And actually, since we're talking about asteroids, here is Lilith, which is also an asteroid. And the story of Lilith is, I don't know if you know this, but you know, Adam and Eve, everybody thought that was the couple. Well, actually, Adam had a first wife, and that was Lilith. And Lilith, unlike Eve, who was supposedly created out of a rip of Adam, Lilith was made from the same stuff that God made Adam. So when Adam wanted her to lie below him, she's like, hell no, I'm not. I will not be subjugated. And she ended up, and this is again patriarchy telling the story, she ended up leaving her husband and living, quote, at the edge of the world with her demon children. Anyway, if you turn that into astrological meaning, Lilith is the person, or is the part of our chart where we're not willing to be subjugated, where we're like, no, I will not shut up. So that's also in her part, in her Virgo stellium. Okay, then here we have the chart of when she was sworn in, the investiture chart. What's going on? Let me look at my notes so I don't get distracted. Okay, the first thing you always look at a chart is sun, moon, and rising sign. So her sun is in Libra, her moon is in Sag, and it's right here on the ascendant, very prominent. And the rising sign is also Sagittarius. So let's start here. So all this Virgo stuff that I had just shown you, I won't go back and forth, just trust me. Trust me, she says. Anyway, you can go back and forth. If you can look at it later if you want to check on it, but I'm just going to keep talking, looking at this. So all this Virgo stuff is falling smack dab right here. And her sun is at 21 degrees Virgo, just like what's called the MC. This is the highest point of the chart. This is the most public point of the chart. This is what you, so when you see me right now and you see my 10th house, you see my MC, because you don't really know me. If you knew me and we went out and had coffee, you would see my first house, because that would mean you have a first-hand experience, never even thought about it, of me, who I am. You would have met me in person, but this is sort of the public face of who we are. So all that powerful Virgo stuff is right here on the midheaven. She has a first house moon, and it's conjunct the ascendant in Sagittarius. So Sagittarians are known to be truth tellers. They can be very blunt. They don't care what you think. They just sort of say what's there. And very often, thing is, I'm not saying, I wouldn't say Sagittarians don't lie, but very often they can't even be bothered. They just say it as it is. So it can be very blunt. It can be very hurtful if you're sensitive Pisces and you're being told something you don't want to hear, but it's probably the truth. So she will speak the truth, and emotionally it will be important for her to speak the truth. So that moon here is again this energy of like, I will follow. And Sagittarian is also the philosophers of the sign of the zodiac. So they sort of question things and they do what's right. And they, how did I get here? There we go. And they sort of figure out for themselves what's right and true, and then speak to it. And again, that's where her moon, her emotional nature is going to be in this job. She has Mercury, the ruler of her Virgo stuff in her birth chart, and the ruler of the ascendant is conjunct the ascendant, which is yet another strengthening element. And in this case, it's retrograde, but because she has a retrograde Mercury, this actually works for her. even though we all go, shit, Mercury is retrograde. There's another thing I could go into, but I'm not that. But there's something in the progressions that's yet another strengthening element. Then the rule of the chart, because Sagittarius is on the ascendant, that means Jupiter rules the chart. Jupiter is down here. And Jupiter is in Aries, and Jupiter at the moment is also going retrograde. So Jupiter is actually moving towards the fourth house cusp, which he won't reach, I believe. It's retrograde until sometime late November, I think. Anyway, so I think what this for me says here, fourth house is the home, so she'll get a lot of support from home and sort of grounding and kind of that kind of the people that live with her husband, her kids, I don't know how many she has, they're all like, we know you're doing amazing work and we're going to do whatever we can. So I think that's what the Jupiter in the fourth is. And again, fourth house also a grounding in her own understanding of who she is in the world and how she comes across. Then in her birth chart, she actually has the sun and Pluto, that conjunction, that powerful thing. She has that trine in a supportive aspect with Saturn, which is structure. And then right now, so out here is where the planets are at the moment. So Pluto is up here. Pluto is actually forming a triangle here, which is called a grand trine, which is a very supportive, closed in energy circle that she can draw from. So again, the universe is sort of giving her this, sounds cheesy, wind under her wings, but she totally, I mean, this whole chart says this woman was made to do this. This is what her whole life sort of moved towards. And then lastly, I want to say, remember when we talked about Justitia and Minerva? Guess what? Here they are, conjunct Pluto, the transformer, again, in the second house of values. Now, second house, lots of people look at, this is my money, this is the things I own, this is my possessions, but it's actually the house of what you value. It's the house of, are you making, I mean, it is the house of money and all this other stuff, but in a larger sense, it's like, how much are you willing to compromise who you are, what you value in order to make money, and are you going to stay in that job that's killing you, or are you actually having the courage to find something that really nurtures you and then where you're excelling? And this is sort of the general meaning of Pluto in the second. Having it conjunct, again, the goddess of justice and the goddess of wisdom, this Pluto to me says that she very much is going to work on, as we expect, on reversing that crazy trajectory that the Supreme Court is on with decisions like Roe v. Wade and all this other stuff, wanting to reverse gay marriage and God knows what. So she's going to work very hard on reversing that. Of course, she can't exactly get another Supreme Court justice on there that's less, choose your own word, less like the people on the right. But should I talk to this? Okay, so you could go totally down the rabbit hole with all of this. I could look at this and compare her chart with Chief Justice John Roberts to see how she gets along with them. I could look at Clarence Thomas. And because I'm curious, I'm going to say this very briefly. And here's, I think, where I have to say for entertainment purposes only. I looked at Clarence Thomas's chart, and surprisingly, there's actually a birth time. So he is a Cancer Sun, Aquarius Moon, and his ascendant, his rising sign is Capricorn at 25 degrees. Now, Pluto, transiting Pluto in the sky is at 27. That means that Pluto just left the 12th house, his house of self-undoing, sometimes known as the 12th house, and is now has moved into his first house where stuff is visible. The 12th is very hidden. This is the stuff that sweep under the rug, and the things where you're like, you have skeletons in the closet and you're like trying to keep the doors closed. And when it comes into the first house, Pluto basically says time to change. Now, Pluto, in every case, you can surrender and go through that transition and really look at the things that aren't working, where you need to make amends, blah, blah, in your life. Or you can go kicking and screaming, and then it usually doesn't go so well. And I guess we can anticipate what's happening here. So all the stuff that's been going on with his wife, self-undoing, and her having testified yesterday, day before, for the January 6th committee, and stating that she still believes that the election was stolen. What the? Anyway, so she did some things there, I think, that might be the downfall of him, and might actually maybe cause a vacancy at the Supreme Court. Who knows? Anyway, this is conjecture, again, entertainment purposes only, but Clarence Thomas definitely has some shit coming his way. Okay, I think that's everything I had to say. Okay, I made a slide earlier, so I'm going to link a bunch of links below for videos you might be interested in. I also, again, reminder, I'm doing a Tarot Ask Me a Question on Sunday, 11 a.m. PDT, and I'm offering a discount, which will also all be below. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.